making this kind of video is probably not going to end well for me, but we're just gonna go for it.
Well, that's a bit pessimistic, don't you think? I mean, if we keep things into perspective, I mean, you are uploading your video on your channel where there are vastly more people who like you than don't like you. And to be honest, I mean, I'm one of those people that like you more than I don't like you, so no, I think this video will work out well for you. You know, positive thoughts.
Hi friends, and everyone else watching this video who probably don't have the nicest of intentions, just hear me out. This is not a video I wanted to make, and it's not the most fun video for me to make.
The most honest videos hardly are, Marina. The most honest videos hardly are. It's mostly because people bring up or build up a habit of trying to appease their audience, which, all things considered, is perfectly reasonable, considering, you know, you want to bring in more people to listen to you because you think you have worthwhile things to say to them. So, yeah, I understand, you know, but when you think that you're going against the grain, you know, you kind of get iffy. That's okay, that's cool. But like I said, Marina, I mean, let's keep things into perspective. You've got more people that like you than don't like you, so I think you'll be alright.
And I know it's not going to be a video where I just get tons of positive, lovey-dovey comments where everyone wants to be my friend, and that's okay. Because as a person who talks about feminism on the internet, I realize that not everyone wants to be my friend, and that is perfectly fine. So I'm going to assume that anyone who's watching this video is either a feminist who has made feminist videos or watches feminist videos, or an anti-feminist who either makes anti-feminist videos or watches anti-feminist videos.
Well, I'm a political mercenary, you know. I just go on the side that sounds more reasonable that day, you know, or at least the side I think will probably make us live better lives. So I don't know if I'm their target audience. In fact, now that I think about it, whenever I respond to a YouTube video, I'm probably never in the target audience. No, that's not entirely true.
There might be some middle ground, but I'm going to assume that if you're watching this, you fall in one of these two camps. There's a type of video on the internet which I'm sure some of you, if not a lot of you, are familiar with. This is what I call the feminist call-out video. As a woman who talks about feminism on the internet, I am intimately familiar with these kinds of videos.
Yeah, I know. I have responded to your videos quite a few times. I'm probably one, if not the main catalyst, you know, to the video you're making right now. So I know, Marina. Yeah.
I've gotten response videos like this directed towards me, and I have a lot of friends who have also had similar videos made about them. I didn't want to acknowledge these types of response videos because A, I didn't want to give them validation, and B, I didn't want to possibly encourage this type of behavior.
Now, that hurts. That hurts me right here. It hurts me right in the chest area. It's like, ugh, like that. You know, that's how much it hurts. Like I'm Dracula, and I just got staked. Hurts my feelings, man. It kind of sucks that you don't ever actually take these videos into consideration. In all honesty, I think that that's a gigantic disservice more to you than anyone else. I mean, let's think about this one, Marina. More than likely, the person probably will be mean or snarky, but you won't know that until you watch the video. And I mean, if you get to a point where the person's being mean or snarky, you don't have any obligation to continue to watch the video. You can just leave. Just go away. But I think maybe, sometimes you might learn something that you didn't know when someone's responding to you. But like I said, I mean, that's all up to your discretion. It's all up to you. But I think, honestly, that's more of a bite against you than anyone else.
So I stayed silent. I pretended I didn't see them, and they were so small and unimportant that they didn't even come across my radar. But they did come across my radar because every time a response video like this was made and directed towards me, the creator of that video would, either intentionally or not, send a legion of their fans to come harass me in my comments.
Now, Marina, let's be fair here, okay? Now, the only person on YouTube I have ever seen, and I mean, there are lots of people on YouTube, so I mean, my knowledge here is limited, but the only person I've ever seen ever tell their fans to go and harass another person has been "Atheism is unstoppable." And if that hurts his feelings, well, tough for him. I'm sorry if his feelings get hurt by me telling the fucking truth. Because damn, that's one sensitive grown-ass man, I'll tell you what. But anyway, But anyway, no, he's the only one. Most people actually link the original video in the description box, not to get people to come harass you, but so people can watch the whole video in context. I know me personally, there have been a couple of times I've made a response video where I haven't used the entire video that I'm responding to. So I put the video in the description box so the person can go read it and get the full context, and then maybe come revisit what I was saying, or watch mine and then make their own opinion or whatever. That's normally the reason why. The point is to say, hey, look, I'm not straw manning or misrepresenting this person. Go watch the video for yourself and form your own conclusions. I mean, it can work. It can be a beautiful, symmetry. I mean, if people watch your videos, I mean, you still get views and AdSense, right? I mean, it can work. I mean, the trade-off is people might say mean things to you, but more people will watch your video. So let's not pretend that most of these people are sending them that way, saying, yeah, say mean things to her. No, it's probably just the person wants to do it because they're a dick. And it doesn't matter how many times you say 6 ways to Sunday. Look, saying mean things to feminists is not going to change their mind. If anything, it's just going to make them believe in the bullshit they believe in even more. If the person is hell-bent on saying mean things, they're just going to do it. Which is why I'm going to say and continue to say, what's more important is that we all as individuals gain the mental fortitude to deal with mean shit, not be upset about it. Bearing in mind, being upset about it is their ultimate goal, so.
A lot of the time, the influx of abuse and harassment from these creators' fans are so great that the person they're responding to is forced to take their video down or close their comments, or are discouraged from making videos altogether.
This might be a little bit nitpicky, but the operative word in that sentence is forced, and I don't think any amount of saying mean things to someone is ever going to be able to force them to remove anything. I think at the end of the day, that's all up to their discretion on whether or not they want to listen or read the comments. I mean, even if you leave the comments open, you never have to read them. I mean, I purposely read comments because I like reading the feedback, regardless if someone calls me stupid or not. So, but I mean, you don't have to read them. You never have to read the comments. Reading is an action, versus, you passively hear things. It's tough to block out your mind. I mean, to block out your hearing a lot without lots of training, but, you selectively read stuff. No one's forced you to do anything in that particular area. That's all up to you. And again, if you've got the mental fortitude to deal with it, well, you'll never be upset. Like me. I went to high school, so there ain't much shit any random person on the internet can say to me that'll ever hurt my feelings. Not much. Not much.
A theme that I often see within anti-feminist discussions is the advocacy for freedom of speech. And I think if you're advocating for that and that's something that you value, you should agree that bullying someone until they're forced to be silent is kind of going against your values.
Yeah, well, I don't advocate for a right that I already have, so I guess, well, I don't even call myself an anti-feminist anymore. I'm just some nigga on the internet. So I will say that you are right here. A lot of anti-feminists do talk about how much they love freedom of speech, mostly because they usually are either trying to comment on a comment section that's been blocked, which you just mentioned that, but also because sometimes they get their own videos removed because they cross someone. I remember one time for me, this one chick, got my video taken down because, in all honesty, because she didn't like what I said. Now she'll never admit it, but that was the reason why. I mean, I wasn't mean. I was snarky, certainly very snarky, but I wasn't cruel, and I certainly didn't send a bunch of people to her channel to go make fun of her. In fact, the only reason people ever did go to her channel and make fun of her was because she removed my video. If she hadn't removed my video, no one would have ever said mean things to her. So, I'm just saying, I mean, it's just two-way street there sometimes, it's not always black and white, right? I mean, yeah, these people are advocating for freedom of speech. I think you got a point, bullying people off the internet certainly isn't conducive to anything. It's not a real good, it's not a moral victory at the very least. But at the same time, like I said in the last clip, it's all about mental fortitude. When you have the mental fortitude to deal with mean comments, they're never going to be able to drive you off because you're not going to pay heed to it. And you want to know something? Sometimes people who say mean things might have a point. Sometimes you have to take that into consideration. I mean, saying, hey, this is wrong because X, Y, Z, you dumbass, is totally different from, wow, you're a fucking pale-faced, flat-ass looking bitch. Two different things. And the first, I don't know, maybe X, Y, and Z might be something you never heard before. But you never know because you never watched it.
I like conversations, I like hearing diverse perspectives, and I like being able to gain a fuller and more nuanced opinion about things based on other people's input. But it becomes impossible to do that when I'm getting hundreds, if not thousands of comments just drowning out any form of discussion, telling me to shut the fuck up, or calling me a stupid bitch, or telling me to kill myself.
Yeah, and I think you actually have a pretty good point here. I mean, even Tildeer himself made an effort to say that making a bunch of feminist videos where all you do is mock people isn't really the most, conducive way to convince anyone of anything. Speaking of which, I was supposed to respond to that video. Never got around to that. Sorry, if you watch this, Tildeer, I'm sorry. I gotta get on to that. Oh, continue, Marina, I'm sorry.
I think we can all agree that none of this is conducive to having a productive conversation. And it's not just me who gets harassed and targeted in my comments, it's anyone commenting on my videos who are disagreeing with these anti-feminist opinions, who are getting harassed and abused and just all sorts of hate. And let me be clear, I'm not talking about rational disagreement. You can disagree with me, and please do. Please disagree with me. It helps me hear other people's opinions and form a better idea of where I stand on issues. What I'm talking about is disagreement steeped in aggression and abuse and hate.
Okay, well, if that's the case, then I guess you're not talking about me, right? You're not talking about the videos I make to you. Because if you are, then my feelings would be hurt. Because I make an effort to actually argue with what you're saying, and if that's the case, then that would mean that, Marina, even if someone is making a video response that's kind of mean, as long as they're still arguing the point, they would still be disagreeing with what you're saying, right? Which means you would still be able to get a different perspective. I mean, it might hurt your feelings at the time, but again, that whole mental fortitude thing, which I guess is easier said than done, or easier said to obtain or try to obtain than actually having it. But when you do achieve it, it wouldn't matter if someone is being mean or inflammatory, because if they make sense, then they make sense, right?
No, if you're trying to argue that your views aren't misogynistic or sexist, calling women bitches and cunts isn't gonna help your cause.
Well, I have to disagree with you here. Calling one woman a bitch does not mean that you dislike all women. Calling a woman a cunt does not translate to all women ever. Now, I mean, sure, if you're actually having a conversation where you're trying to convince somebody of something, does it really make the most amount of sense to insult them? No, because it just puts them on guard. It's really not a very good tactic to use. But that doesn't translate necessarily into hatred of all women, because you have to take into consideration maybe that one woman was being a bitch.
If you want to make a sound argument, you don't need to be insulting and demeaning, which I don't think is that radical of an idea, but apparently it is. On top of these videos creating tons of harassment and abuse directed towards the creators that they're disagreeing with, I think there's a fundamental flaw with the way that these arguments are presented and the structure of these videos. The problem with these response videos is that they cut up an argument, they decontextualize them, and they divorce them of any of their original context. It's easy to write off these arguments because you've cut them off, you haven't let them finish, or explain why they're making that argument.
Well, I think here we're going to have to somewhat disagree. I think it's possible for that to happen, as in I've seen it happen many times actually. I don't know, maybe it's poor editing or bad timing where the person doesn't actually allow the individual to, complete the sentence completely. It happens, and you're not wrong here that it happens, but to say that the format is fundamentally flawed because some people don't use it well, I don't think it's fair to say. I think there are plenty of people who use it perfectly, who actually allow the individual to complete the full sentence and the complete thought before they transition to the next point. Bearing in mind all the jump cuts that you make are indeed different transitions from point to point. Every time you say however, but, transitioning words, you are changing from one argument to another. And if you splice there, you can address what happened before you get to the next idea. And that's the point. The point is, instead of trying to... here's the thing. The reason why people make response videos is because they don't want to misrepresent what the person is saying. They want to argue against what the person said in that particular area right then. And sure, can it be abused? Can it be used to make the person look really stupid? Yeah, but the whole idea is to make sure that you never strawman the individual that you're arguing with, so that you're just responding to what was said right then. And I think that's the strength of the format. The weakness of the format is the fact that, yeah, I mean, it can be it's really easy to abuse. And I think that's a huge weakness. But when it's used correctly, I think they make some of the best videos on YouTube, honestly.
It gives the person responding to the original video the upper hand because ultimately they decide where to cut and what to cut, and they always get the last word in.
Well, I mean, getting the last word in is more, just the natural consequence of the format than it is, I mean, here's the thing. When it comes to arguing, it doesn't really matter if you get the last word in as long as you're right at the end of the day. I mean, if you're right, it doesn't matter if the person wants to continue to argue, unless your victory conditions were to convince the person that you're right. Well, then that's totally different. But as long as stating your case is your ultimate goal, then it doesn't matter if you get the last word or not, because I mean, I've seen plenty of response videos where I've agreed with the individual that was being responded to versus the person who uploaded the video, even though they had the complete upper hand and were, responding to it. Sometimes, again, sometimes it's actually a strength to have response videos or to have people. I'll give you an example, all right? I'm going off a tangent. Here's a good example. I was on Vegan Games channel a couple months back, and he was doing a response video to Greg O'Gallagher. And I liked what Greg O'Gallagher was saying more than I liked what Vegan Games was saying. So I went to Greg's channel, started watching, found some pretty good advice. It happens sometimes. So, I mean, yeah, you have identified a weakness, and I agree that that's possible and that can happen, but sometimes the inverse can happen. I think it all, at the end of the day, comes to the individual that's watching and whether or not the person's case is pleaded well.
So you can see how this is a flawed debating style because it's essentially cheating.
Yeah, not really. I mean, I guess you can just watch the last clip that I made. Continue.
On top of this, it's easy to insult the person that you're criticizing and turn your audience against them in order to discredit the validity of their argument even further. It doesn't make your argument any more intellectually sound, but it is an easy way to create a negative bias against the argument and the person making that argument.
Now, Marina, the thing is, with much of what you're saying, you're not wrong, at all. You're just not entirely correct. I mean, we have to be fair here. I mean, if we're talking about teenagers and adults, and it doesn't matter how many times you insult the individual, they can still make up their own mind. They still have a functioning cognitive system. So sure, that can happen, but we have to add in the human element that someone can make up their own mind and their own decisions, no matter what the person is saying. I mean, hell, there have been plenty of times people have been on my channel and completely disagreed with what I was said. It's perfectly fine.
If your ultimate goal is to win a debate, then sure, it's dishonest at best, but it's effective. But what if your goal isn't just to win a debate? What if your goal is to point out a basic problem or injustice and try and search for a solution to that injustice?
Well, if that is your ultimate goal, taking what you said verbatim, and maybe I shouldn't, then that would mean that it would stand regardless of whether or not someone makes a response video or not, since your primary objective was simply to state it. And as long as it's out there and it's stated, and that means anyone and everyone can come across it and learn from what you said, then you win 10 out of 10 times, no matter if someone calls you a buffoon for saying it. Well, that's is what you meant when you said that.
Well, it doesn't really matter because you've been pulled into the fighting regardless of your choice. You've immediately lost a fight that you didn't even know you were engaging in the first place, and you've lost that fight because the person initiating it used dishonest and manipulative tactics to gain the upper hand.
No, well, here I have to disagree. I mean, bearing in mind that, let's take Bearing for example. If Bearing takes a video he found from, I don't know, some feminist, right? And he puts it on his channel, and 70,000 people watch. Well, 70,000 people just watched the feminist pleader case. And sure, maybe Bearing was snarky, and maybe Bearing didn't say much of anything, and Bearing just insulted and called her stupid. But 70,000 people did still see what she said. Now, it's entirely possible that one of those 70,000 people might say, yeah, she kind of has a point. Maybe 300. Hell, maybe even 1,000 people. The fact remains, if your primary objective was simply to put your case out on the internet, and you did, even if someone disagrees or makes fun of it, it actually can still reach more people. And in fact, the bouncing in between or so-called YouTube drama can actually, garner more attention and more views. Yeah, it can work to everyone's benefit, if you can deal with, the mean comments you might receive.
I know that this is probably a pointless call into the wind, and no matter what I say, I'm still gonna get douchebags on the internet calling me shitty things and telling me that I don't matter.
Jeez Louise, Marina, you're so pessimistic. Look on the bright side. Look at this right here, this response video I just made. Truth of the matter is, I actually think that you're spot on with most of the things that you're saying. I just am mildly, or kind of halfway, disagreeing with a lot of things that you're saying. Which means you've just been exposed to thousands of people, Marina. Thousands of extra people just heard your case. And if your objective was to simply just get your case out there, then you win. You've got double the amount of people who listen to what you had to say. I think that's a positive. That's a win right there.
But I'm gonna say it anyway because I think it's important to be better than that. I think if you're really making a worthwhile argument, you need to be better than that. Demonizing each other and calling each other names is not gonna solve anything. It's not. And if your argument relies on one-upping another person in order to feel superior, it's probably not a great argument in the first place, to be honest. And I'm not saying I've never done this. I realize it's easier to demonize the opposition so you can just write them off. It's easy to characterize people that disagree with you as ignorant assholes because then you don't have to listen to their perspectives or what they're saying. But that doesn't achieve anything, and in the end, we've only polarized each other even further. We're just getting farther and farther away from each other and just yelling in the distance, and it's not doing anything. It's not.
No words. No words. Wrap us up, Marina.
My camera just died, but it's cool. We're just gonna go with it. Human beings just want to be heard. I want to hear you, and I want you to hear me. I'm not here to win a debate or try and feel better than someone else. I just want to point out problems and find solutions. So if you want to do that, then that's cool. Let's talk, let's work together, let's have conversations, let's disagree with each other. But I'm not interested in engaging in what's essentially a jerking off contest. So if you want to talk, let's talk.
And this, my friends, this is why Marina is my favorite feminist. Now, don't get me wrong, I actually don't think most feminists are bad people in any capacity. I actually just think that they're wrong and immature, and I think a lot of them are just really depressed and have low self-esteem. But Marina, she might be all of those things, but she is reasonable, and I like her presentation style, and I like her sense of humor and her sarcasm. She is, without a shadow of a doubt, one of my favorite feminists to make response videos to and to watch and listen, because even though I hardly, if ever, agree with what she's saying, I mean she looks good saying it. And to actually address what she was saying, I think she's right. I think she has a point. You know, shouting, yelling, calling people mean names without having any substance to any argument, without actually saying anything that's conducive to any point that you're making, probably isn't going to be the most helpful in convincing anyone of anything. I'll give you an example. Back in the day when I was younger, what I used to do is I just used to go on YouTube and I would just listen to a bunch of different positions I disagreed with because I wanted to hear what the opposite had to say. And there were many times in my life where I would just watch a bunch of atheists talk about why they're atheists. Now, I was almost close to being an atheist, right? But here's the thing. The videos that convinced me of almost becoming an atheist were never the videos where the person called me stupid. They were never the videos where the person said you were stupid because I believed in God. They were never the videos that pointlessly mocked me or said I was dumb or anything like that. It was always the videos where the person, ironically, was actually kind of emotional and just honest about the way they felt. I mean, they never convinced me wholesale, obviously. In fact, interestingly enough, they actually strengthened my opinion later in life, but, you know, whatever, another video for another time. But the point that I'm making is this. Mockery might get some people who already agree with you to agree with you more, but if your primary objective, which should be ours, is to convince people who don't agree with us to agree with us now, maybe being honest, kind, and legitimately logical and rational is the best route. Because honestly, I don't think Marina was wrong. I mean, not completely right, but not wrong at all. So that being said, man, I certainly hope you guys enjoyed today's video. And if you did, man, go ahead and click the like button. Yeah, shoot, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Comment in the comment box below. And as always, you guys have yourselves a great day. And I'll see you cool cats soon. Adios.